All right. Well, you certainly have a very consistent, ethic and beliefs as you describe them. And as I said, I do really respect them. Although I have, it's difficult to fit that into a traditional paradigm of politics. And that brings me to your run for the presidency. Why don't you talk a little bit about? Let's talk about the internet, for example, in the presidency. You're very popular on the internet. It seems more than would be evident from the mainstream media. You're the third most popular Republican on MySpace. I checked the other day. You have more YouTube subscribers than John McCain, one of the presumed frontrunners. How do you account for your popularity on the internet? Does it have something to do with your somewhat libertarian views being acceptable on the internet?
I don't understand the internet well enough. I love it and I use it, and I don't understand it completely, and I know it's very important. I know it's very important philosophically, and this might be why I'm helped by it, and that is philosophically, I don't want the government's hands on the internet. I don't want taxes being placed on the internet, and I vote, there was a survey, a polling of all the members of Congress. There were like 20 votes dealing with the internet,
right.
And I won that hands down, for protection of the privacy of the internet, which puts me in political jeopardy because that means I don't want the federal government monitoring and editing what's on the internet. And there's trash on the internet.
Right.
And I don't understand the technology, but I know there's technology available to screen some of the bad stuff on there. So I see the responsibility as being parental or personal, to deal with monitoring what kids see on television or on a computer. So I am by far the strongest advocate for privacy. For instance, this week I just introduced a bill, or I introduced a bill. Barney Frank introduced it. I was the original co-sponsor, and that is to change the law that banned internet gambling.
Right, I just saw that today.
But
yeah.
I think gambling's dumb, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've always had to work hard for my money, and I never like to see it go very easily. So, and I would teach my kids, gambling doesn't make any sense. But the principle of the freedom of choice and whose responsibility it is very important to me. And that happens to be a very popular issue on the internet. And,
right.
And somebody say, oh no, if somebody becomes and wastes their money and they get over their heads, you're at fault. And I said, no, that is not the case at all. Because beer is legal and you drink too much, I'm not responsible for you. When government wants to assume that responsibility, which they do too often, you have things like prohibition of alcohol, which was a total failure. Today we live with prohibition of drugs. This is a very good example of the lack of respect for the Constitution. When they passed the 19th Amendment and prohibited, when they prohibited alcohol, they changed the Constitution, and then they repealed it.
Right.
Today, though, I mean, the government is so involved what you can do and can't do, what you can take, and all this drug war that's going on. It's all done without the change of the Constitution.
The issue, though, going back just for a second to change the Constitution then, we're not doing it now, it shows that something's wrong with Congress today. Could you argue, and watch that because that might turn off the computer, could you argue, though, that all these other members of Congress are duly elected members of Congress as well? So you seem to be at odds with other members of Congress, and that's very understandable. But are you really at odds with the people who elect them in the first place?
Well, I must not be at odds with the people that elect me, and
That's
they know,
true.
and
That's
they know
true.
where I stand, and that's the only measurement I have. And people would say, well, you vote not to ban pornography on the internet, and you have a Bible Belt district. You vote to do away with the federal war on drugs, and you're in this Bible Belt. How do you get away with that? Well, I have to explain myself, and I have to explain that if you are a conservative Christian, you might want to have the right to teach your kids at home or in a Christian school, and you might want to have prayer, and I will protect those civil liberties which are good. And I have to convince them that liberty is a package, and you can't pick and choose. If you say, oh, I'm going to ban this but not this, they stand to have theirs banned, and somebody else is not. So they may well lose out. But I have to, in a farm district, I have to convince my farmers. I don't vote for farm subsidies. And overall, it's not part of the Constitution. It's not in their best interest, and you have to sell it to them. So it is a challenge, but this means that I think most other members, just like yesterday, we had a vote dealing with a medical bill, and one doctor came up to me and says, "Oh, well," he says, "I agree with you." It had to do with regulations on DNA and this sort of thing, and it was intrusive, and And he says, "Oh, you're doing exactly right. This is exactly right." But I said, "Well, why do you do it?" He says, "Because he says I don't have the guts to do it." But he knew it. He knew it was the right vote. I think members like that don't give themselves enough credit, and they don't give the people enough credit. Because if you go to them, evidently the thing that they've used against me most is the fact that I'm soft on drugs. You know, and I'm not soft on drugs. I had to convince them that I personally detest drugs. I don't want my kids using them. I don't want my grandchildren using them. But I just don't like the drug war. So you have to convince them that more people out there must be more sympathetic than even I realized. Because after I had been out for 12 years and everybody became more aware of my libertarian beliefs, it can't happen. Now they know, the truth is out, that I really believe in freedom of choice.
Yeah.
And we won that election against all kinds of odds. So that encourages me to believe that the people are ripe to hear the message of freedom.
Yeah, it's certainly a very interesting and somewhat improbable tale in politics today. We're about to wrap up. I have one more thing to do, but before we do that, take a shot at the camera. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't gotten out there to anybody who's watching this?
In some ways it's ironic. People ask me why I want to be president. I don't have the greatest desire in the world to be president. I'm responding to many, many requests of people wanting me to run, and I think it's very worthwhile. And who knows what will happen tomorrow? Some surprising events could happen, and we may do a lot better than anybody ever dreamed. But I am running on a program, interestingly enough, on what I don't want to do. I don't want to run people's lives. I don't want to run the economy. I don't know what you want to do with your life, and that's your business. And no individual, no Congress, no bureaucrat knows how to run the economy. What we should do is providing an environment where the individual can make their own decisions, where economic decisions are made in the marketplace, fully realizing that free markets are the way you produce goods and services and where wealth comes from. And I certainly, as a president, wouldn't be smart enough to know how to run the world, police the world, settle disputes that have been going on for 1,000 years. It's unconstitutional. It's not practical. So I don't want to be the policeman of the world. I want to bring troops home, and I want to defend the Constitution. On the positive side, I want to defend liberty. And to defend liberty, you have to reduce the size and scope of government. Fortunately, we live in a country that has good traditions. The Constitution defends those viewpoints, and certainly the founders believed in this. So being an individual who would take very seriously the oath of office, fortunately for me, that means it would also defend my personal beliefs that liberty can solve a lot of problems, and rejection of the rule of law and not following the Constitution is very, very dangerous.
Well, Congressman Ron Paul, I have one parting gift for you because I'm so excited that you came to my dorm room today. This is a pencil puppet I made of you for when I talked about your videos online in a previous video. I think everybody can see this. This is your pencil puppet. I'd like you to have it now because you actually came to my dorm room. It hardly seems necessary to have a little pencil stick representation of you.
That's pretty neat.
Congreshman, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I'm
Great.
sure everyone else does as well. Where can they find more about you? What's your website?
RonPaul2008.com. Please look into that.
RonPaul2008.com. Thanks, everybody.
All right.